I am standing at the door of my apartment on a Friday evening looking down at my father through the intercom screen. He is soaking wet from the rain, his shoulders hunched, looking older and more tired than I have ever seen him. 2 weeks ago, this same man stood in his office and told me, "If you cannot handle watching your brother succeed, then walk away." So I did. I walked away from the company, from the favoritism, from everything. And now here he is. His eyes are pleading desperate. Part of me wants to shut the door and pretend I never saw him. But another part, the part that spent 28 years hoping he would finally see me, is curious. What happened in those 2 weeks? What could possibly bring him here in the rain to my door? Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Have you ever felt invisible to someone who was supposed to see you? Have you ever been pushed aside for someone else, no matter how hard you tried? If this story hits home, please hit that like button and subscribe, because what I am about to share is not just about family drama. It is about the moment you realize your worth does not come from other people's approval. It is about the day you stop waiting and start walking. And trust me, what happened in those 2 weeks changed everything. To understand why my father was standing there in the rain begging, I need to take you back to the beginning. Growing up, I thought every family was like mine. I thought it was normal for a father to have a favorite. I am the older son. My name is Gene. 3 years younger than me is my brother Brandon. We live in Texas, where my father Robert built a construction company from the ground up. When I was 12 and Brandon was 9, our mother died in a car accident. That is when everything shifted. After Mom passed, Dad became distant with me, but somehow closer to Brandon. I told myself it was because Brandon looked like Mom. Fair skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. I looked like Dad. Dark hair, tanned skin, tall and broad. Maybe seeing me reminded him of himself, and seeing Brandon reminded him of her. The signs of favoritism started small when we were kids, but they were always there. In school, I worked hard and brought home straight A grades. Dad would glance at my report card and say, "Good job," then go back to his newspaper. Brandon scraped by with C grades and the occasional B. But Dad would brag to the neighbors about how naturally smart Brandon was. When it came to sports, I played football. Dad never came to a single game. Brandon played baseball, which was Dad's favorite sport, and suddenly Dad was at every game, even volunteering as an assistant coach. On my 16th birthday, I got a simple watch. It was nice, but nothing special. On Brandon's 16th birthday, Dad bought him a brand new pickup truck. I remember standing in the driveway watching Brandon get the keys and feeling something crack inside my chest. When it was time for college, I wanted to study architecture. I had sketches, plans, dreams of designing buildings. Dad shut it down immediately. "That is a waste of money, Gene. Come work at the company and learn the real business." So I went to community college and joined the company at 21. Brandon, on the other hand, wanted to spend a year traveling Europe. Dad paid for the entire trip without hesitation. I joined the family construction company right after I graduated. Brandon joined when he was 23, after he had spent years traveling and partying. But even though I started first, even though I worked harder, we were never treated the same. I started at the bottom on the construction sites, working alongside the crews. I learned every aspect of the job from the ground up. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, spent my days in the Texas heat, and came home exhausted. Brandon walked straight into an office position as a project manager assistant. Air conditioning, clean clothes, no calluses on his hands. He worked Monday through Friday, never a minute past 5. For 3 years, I proved myself. I learned from the experienced foreman, absorbed every detail about foundations, framing, electrical, plumbing. I became a senior site supervisor. The workers respected me because I had earned it. Brandon, meanwhile, spent 2 years sitting in meetings and making PowerPoint presentations. He did not understand the technical side of construction. He had never poured concrete or read a blueprint on site. But after just 2 years, Dad promoted him to Vice President of Operations, VP. A position above mine. I tried to swallow the bitterness. I told myself that maybe Brandon had skills I did not see. Maybe he was good at the business side. But deep down I knew the truth. It was not about skill. It had never been about skill. By the time I was 28, I had given 7 years to that company. Brandon had been there for 4. Then came the moment that would change everything. The company landed its biggest project ever. A commercial and residential complex called Riverside. $25 million. I had spent 6 months preparing for it. I worked with the engineering team, created detailed timelines, budgets, risk assessments. I knew that project inside and out. When I presented my plans to Dad, he seemed impressed. He called it professional work. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was when he would finally see what I could do. A week later, Dad called a company-wide meeting. I walked into that conference room with my thick folder of documents ready to lead. I had no idea what was coming. The conference room was full. Every key employee was there. I sat near the head of the table, my project folder in front of me. Brandon strolled in 15 minutes late, holding a Starbucks cup, laughing with his assistant. Dad stood up and cleared his throat. "I have good news," he announced. "The Riverside Complex project, our biggest undertaking yet, will be led by Brandon as project lead." The room went silent. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I looked at Brandon. He seemed surprised too, but then a slow smile spread across his face. Dad continued, "Brandon has shown me a fresh vision for this project. Gene will serve as deputy, supporting his brother." Deputy. After 7 years of hard work, after 6 months of preparation, I was going to be the support. I sat there frozen, trying to control the storm inside me. People filed out of the room after the meeting. A few coworkers patted my shoulder with sympathetic looks. Brandon walked up to me. "Hey bro, thanks for all the prep work. I will take it from here." He said it casually, like it was nothing. I did not say a word. I just walked out. That afternoon I went to Dad's office. I knocked and walked in without waiting for an answer. "Dad, we need to talk about this morning's decision." He did not even look up from his paperwork. "What about it?" he asked. I took a breath. "I have been working on that project for 6 months. I know every detail. Brandon has not even visited the site once." Dad finally looked up, his expression cold. "Brandon has leadership skills. He has the vision." I felt my frustration rising. Leadership skills. You are talking about someone who is never on time, who does not understand the technical side, who— Dad cut me off, his voice hard. "Careful, Gene. That is your brother you are talking about." "This is not about brothers," I said. "This is about the company. About doing what is right." Dad stood up from his desk. "I have made my decision." Brandon leads. "You support." That is an order. I stared at him. "Why, Dad? Why does everything always go to Brandon? What have I done wrong?" There was a long silence. Then Dad said, "Gene, you are good at the work. Brandon is good at leading. Accept your role." Something broke inside me at that moment. This was not about the project anymore. This was about my entire life. "I have been accepting my role for 28 years, I said quietly. Then I walked out. The next 2 weeks were hell. Brandon took over as project lead, and immediately everything I had warned about started happening. On the first day, he called a meeting and changed the entire timeline. He wanted to shrink the construction phase from 18 months down to 12. I warned him. "That is not possible. We will not have enough manpower, and the quality will suffer." Brandon waved me off. "We need to be aggressive." Dad agrees. On the 3rd day, he replaced all the subcontractors I had carefully selected. He chose companies that were 30% cheaper but had terrible reputations. "These guys are not reliable," I told him. "I have worked with them before. They cut corners." Brandon just smiled. "Gene, let me handle this." "You are too cautious." By the 5th day, Brandon made his first site visit. It was a photo opportunity for his social media. He did not know how to read a blueprint. When the engineering team tried to walk him through the structural plans, he kept interrupting with random ideas. He wanted to change the structural design right there on the spot. I had to step in and smooth things over with the engineers. They looked at me with pity in their eyes. By the end of the first week, I was working 16-hour days trying to fix Brandon's mistakes. He left every day at 5 to go out with his friends. Then Dad called me. "Why is the progress so slow?" Brandon says. "You are not cooperating." The second week was worse. The cheap contractors Brandon hired started their work. The quality was terrible. Nothing met the specifications. I reported it to Brandon. He brushed me off. They are fine. Stop being paranoid. On the 10th day, the clients came to inspect the site. They saw the poor workmanship and were not happy. Brandon blamed the execution team. He blamed me and the workers. On the 12th day, I got a call from Marcus, one of our most experienced foremen. "Gene, we have got a serious problem with the foundation." I rushed to the site. There were cracks in the foundation. Structural cracks. I immediately reported it to both Brandon and Dad. The next day there was an emergency meeting. Brandon stood at the front of the room and pointed at me. "Gene supervised this section. He should have caught this earlier." I could not believe what I was hearing. "I warned you about those contractors," I said, my voice shaking. "You did not listen." Brandon shot back. "You are just making excuses." Then Dad looked at me with disappointment in his eyes. "This is on you, Gene. You are the site supervisor." In that moment I felt a betrayal so deep it took my breath away. I had given everything to this company, to this family. And now I was being blamed for failures that were not mine. After the meeting, I followed Dad into his office. Brandon came in too. "Dad, you have to listen to me," I said. "I warned about everything." Brandon ignored it. "Now you are blaming me." Dad did not look up. "I do not want to hear excuses. Your job is to make things work." I felt something inside me snap. "My job? Do you know what I have been doing for the past 2 weeks? I have been working 16 hours a day trying to fix bad decisions, and you have not asked me once how I am doing." Brandon spoke up then, his voice smug. "Gene, maybe construction is not for you." Too much pressure. I turned on him. "Shut up. You do not get to talk. You do not know anything about this work." Dad's voice rose. "Do not talk to your brother like that." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Brother, he is not my brother in this office. He is an incompetent manager who got handed power because you, Dad, cut me off." "Because what? Say it." Everything came pouring out. "Because you have always loved him more than me. Since Mom died, everything, every opportunity, every word of praise, it all goes to Brandon. And me, I am just the worker. I am invisible." Dad stood up, his face cold. "If that is what you think, maybe you need some perspective." I stared at him. "Perspective? You want perspective? Look at this project. Look at the truth." Dad's voice was ice. "The only truth I see is that you cannot handle your brother getting promoted. This is jealousy, Gene, not professionalism." I stood there stunned. Jealousy. After everything, he thought this was about jealousy. I felt something shift inside me, a clarity I had never felt before. "If you cannot handle watching your brother succeed," Dad said slowly, "then maybe you should walk away. Nobody is forcing you to stay." The room went silent. I looked at my father. I looked at Brandon, who could not meet my eyes. Then I said quietly, "You are right. Nobody is forcing me." I turned and walked out. I did not look back. I went back to my cubicle and started packing my things. Workers and colleagues came by asking what was happening. I just smiled and said, "I am moving on." I typed out a resignation email. It was short. "Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position. I have given everything to this company. It is time I invest in myself." I hit send. That afternoon I drove back to my apartment. I had not lived with Dad since I was 22. I sat in my empty living room feeling a strange mix of emotions. Freedom, fear, anger, relief. For the first time in my life I did not know what came next. But I knew one thing. I was done waiting for approval that would never come. Brandon called me that evening. "Gene, come on. Do not be dramatic. Come back tomorrow, we will work it out." I did not answer. I blocked his number. Dad did not call. Not that night. Not the next day. Not at all. At first I felt lost. I had spent my entire life working toward something, and now that something was gone. But then slowly the fog began to clear. I started to see things differently. I had skills. I had experience. 7 years of hands-on construction knowledge. That was valuable. I was not worthless just because my father could not see it. On the 4th day after I left, I started making calls. I reached out to contacts I had made over the years. One name kept coming to mind. David Martinez. He had worked at Dad's company 3 years ago, but left after Dad kept overlooking him for promotions. Now David ran his own construction company in Dallas. I called him. "David, it is Gene. I left the company." "Gene, I have been waiting for you to leave that toxic place for years. I have a position for you, senior project manager. Are you interested?" The pay was 40% more than what I had been making. The respect was genuine. I accepted on the spot. The second week after leaving was transformative. I started my new job with David's company. The environment was completely different. People listened when I spoke. My ideas mattered. David trusted me with real authority from day one. He put me in charge of a project immediately. I felt something I had not felt in years. I felt valued. Outside of work, I started taking care of myself. I joined a gym. I reconnected with old friends I had not had time for. The weight I had been carrying for so long started to lift. I was not thinking about Dad. I was not thinking about Brandon. I was not thinking about the company. I was just living. For me, Brandon sent a few text messages during that second week. "Dad is asking about you." "Then things are tough here." I did not read them carefully. I did not respond. Dad still had not reached out. Not a single word. And honestly, I was okay with that. Meanwhile, back at the company, things were falling apart. I heard about it through Marcus, who called me during that second week. The Riverside project was in chaos. Without me, nobody knew how to handle the foundation problem. Brandon was drowning. They had to hire an emergency structural engineer, which cost an extra $200,000. The engineer's report was damning. The original plan was sound. Current execution is flawed. The clients were furious. They demanded to meet with someone who actually knew what they were doing. Brandon went to the meeting, but could not answer basic technical questions. One client apparently said, "Where is Gene? We remember him from site visits." He actually knew what he was talking about. The cheap contractors were failing left and right. Dad had to fire them and find new ones, which cost more money and more time. The budget had already gone over by $1.2 million. The timeline was delayed by at least 3 months. Workers were threatening to quit. Morale in the company was at an all-time low, and Dad was finally realizing what I had been trying to tell him all along. That Friday evening, 2 weeks after I walked away, I came home from work feeling good. I was planning to cook dinner, maybe watch a movie. I was relaxed. Then my intercom buzzed. I looked at the screen and froze. It was Dad, standing in the lobby of my building. In the rain. "Gene, it is Dad. Can I come up?" he said through the intercom. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore him, but curiosity won. "Come up," I said. A few minutes later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I barely recognized him. He looked older, tired. His usually crisp suit was wrinkled. There were dark circles under his eyes. He stood there, not knowing how to start. "Can I sit down?" he asked. I crossed my arms. "What do you want?" He took a breath. "I need to talk to you. About the company. About Riverside." I kept my voice cold. "I do not work there anymore." "Remember," he flinched. "I know. I know you do not. But things are falling apart, Gene. The project is a disaster." I was not surprised. "I warned you," I said simply. He looked down. "You did. You were right." "About everything. The contractors, the timeline." The hay paused. "Brandon. He cannot handle it." I waited. He continued. "The clients are threatening to pull out. We are bleeding money. The team wants you back." I asked the question I needed answered. "The team, or you?" There was a long silence. Finally he said, "Me. I want you back. I need you back." I let out a bitter laugh. "You need me. 2 weeks ago you told me to walk away. Now you need me." His voice cracked slightly. "I was wrong. I made a mistake." I shook my head. "A mistake. You have favored Brandon my entire life. That is not a mistake. You told me I was jealous. You stood there and let Brandon blame me. Those were not mistakes. Those were choices." "Gene, please," he said. "The company," I cut him off. "I do not care about the company." He looked shocked. What? I said it again, clearly. I do not care. I worked for that company for 7 years. I gave you everything, and you never even looked at me. Now that you need me, you are here. But I have moved on, he asked. Where are you working now? I told him. Sterling Construction, David Martinez's company. I am a senior project manager. Recognition flashed in his eyes. David. He left because I finished for him. Because you treated him the same way. Now you know why your best people leave. Dad looked desperate. Gene, I am begging you. Come back. Name your price. Whatever you want. I looked at him. The man I had worshipped my entire life. The man who was now begging. I felt something strange. Not anger anymore, just exhaustion. You know what I wanted most in my life, I said quietly. I wanted you to see me. I wanted you to be proud of me. But I do not need that anymore. He reached out. Gene, please, I held up my hand. I will think about it. But not for you. For the workers. They do not deserve to suffer because of this mess. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. Thank you, Gene. I stopped him. Do not thank me. I have not decided yet. And if I agree, there will be conditions, he said quickly. Anything. I pointed to the door. Go home. I will call you. After Dad left, I sat alone in my apartment. Part of me wanted to refuse immediately and never look back. But another part kept thinking about Marcus and the other workers. They had been good to me. They did not deserve to lose their jobs because of Brandon's incompetence. I called David and told him what happened. What do you want to do? David asked. I was honest. I do not know. Part of me wants to help, but I do not want to go back to that place. David's voice was steady. Then, do not go back. Go on your terms. Or do not go at all. You have a future here, Gene, no matter what you decide. I also called Marcus. Gene, man, it is hell here, he said. Brandon does not know what he is doing. But I do not want you to come back if it hurts you. I appreciated his honesty. I am thinking about it. But things would have to change, Marcus said. Whatever you decide, we have got your back. That night, I made my decision. I was not going back to save Dad. I was not going back to save the company. I was going back because good people were going to suffer, and I could prevent that. But more importantly, I was going back on my terms, with boundaries, with conditions that reflected my worth. Monday morning I called Dad. I will come back, but with conditions. He sounded relieved. Anything, Gene. What do you need? I laid it out clearly. First, I am project director for Riverside. Brandon reports to me, not the other way around. Dad hesitated. Gene, he is still VP. I cut him off. Second condition. Brandon gets demoted from VP. He needs to learn from the ground up. He starts as a site supervisor just like I did. Dad protested. He will not agree to that. I kept my voice firm. That is between you and him. These are my conditions. Take them or leave them. There was a long pause. What else? He asked. I continued. Third, I am not coming back full time. I am working as a consultant on a 6-month contract to fix Riverside. After that, I am going back to Sterling. I am not abandoning David. Dad tried to argue, but after 6 months I interrupted. After 6 months, if you want me to stay, we renegotiate. As partners, not as father and son. I want equity in the company. 20%. He was shocked. 20%, Gene, that is. I did not let him finish. That is my worth. You have 2 choices. Lose the entire project and your company's reputation, or give me what I am worth. He was silent. I need to think. I gave him a deadline. You have 24 hours. After that, I am done. I hung up. 20 hours later, Dad called back. I agree. All of it. I was not surprised, but I was not going to make it easy. Put it in writing. Legal contract. He agreed. When can you start? I told him. Monday next week. And you need to announce the changes to the entire company. Publicly. He agreed to that too. The following Monday I walked back into that building, but I was not the same person who had left 2 weeks earlier. I was walking in with power, with respect, with my worth defined by me, not by him. Dad held a company-wide meeting. He stood in front of everyone and made the announcement. Gene is returning as project director for Riverside. Brandon will be working as a site supervisor to gain field experience. The room erupted in applause. I saw Brandon sitting in the corner, his face red. But I also saw relief on the faces of Marcus and the other workers. I got to work immediately. I reassessed the entire project, fired the incompetent contractors, brought in professionals, met with the clients and rebuilt their trust. It was not easy, but within 3 months the project was back on track. Brandon struggled at first. He was used to being handed everything. Working on site, taking orders from Marcus and the foreman was humbling. He was resistant and entitled at first, but the workers did not go easy on him. Marcus made sure of that. Slowly over those months I watched Brandon change. He started showing up on time. He started listening. He learned what it meant to earn respect. He was not the golden child anymore. He was just another worker trying to prove himself. And honestly, it was good for him. As for Dad and me, we kept things professional. We were not close like a father and son, but there was a mutual respect that had not been there before. Sometimes he tried to bond to go back to how things were, but I kept my distance. I had learned my lesson. After 6 months, the Riverside project was completed successfully. The clients were happy. The company's reputation was intact. Dad asked me to stay permanently. I declined. I went back to Sterling Construction full-time. But I kept my 20% equity in Dad's company as a silent partner. It was not about the money. It was about finally being seen, finally being valued, and knowing that I did not need his approval to know my worth. Looking back now, 2 years later, I realized something important. That night when Dad stood at my door in the rain, I thought he came because he finally saw my worth. But the truth is, he came because he needed me, and those are two very different things. I do not regret walking away. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also the moment I started living for myself. For 28 years I had been chasing his approval, trying to prove I was enough. But the only person I needed to prove anything to was myself. Brandon and I are not close. Maybe we never will be. But I do not hate him anymore. He was just a kid who got everything handed to him and never learned what it meant to earn it. Now he is learning. Whether he becomes a better person is his choice. As for Dad, I forgave him, but I did not forget. Forgiveness does not mean going back to how things were. It means letting go of the anger so it does not poison you. I have my own life now, my own success, and it tastes so much sweeter because I built it myself. If you are out there living in someone's shadow, waiting for them to see you, stop. Walk away if you have to. Build something of your own. Because the approval you are chasing, you already have it inside you. You just have to believe it. And sometimes the people who cannot see your worth do not deserve to be in your life, even if they are family. That is the hardest lesson I ever learned. But it set me free. 2 weeks. That is all it took for everything to fall apart without me. Makes you wonder how long did they ever really think they could last. So let me ask you, have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved to find yourself? Have you ever stood up for your worth when nobody else would? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories about life, family, and finding your strength. And share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who is waiting for approval they will never get. Maybe this story will be the push they need. Thank you for listening. I hope you find the courage to walk your own path. You are worth more than you know. Take care.